movies for black girl nerds.
Thank you, both of you, for your time. I appreciate it. And thank you for this very menacing leaning into the TV series. You both are wonderful. And I love how layered both of your characters are. Beginning with you, Gugu, congratulations on the series and also for being executive producer of the series. So now stepping not only in front of the camera, but behind it, what were some of the big learning experiences from doing double duty on such an intense series, as well as serving in the other capacity?
Well, thank you. Well, it's more work. Definitely more work in the same amount of time. But no, it was an absolute privilege to work with Hello Sunshine again, Reese Witherspoon's company, who I worked with on the morning show. And just, Reese is a prime pioneering example of an actress who has moved from, being in front of the camera to producing and, having her own company and to such success. So I was definitely very much inspired by that and the leadership behind the scenes. Lauren Neustadter, who runs the company, I learned an incredible amount from her and her dynamism. And Veronica West, our showrunner and writer. We just had so many powerful women behind the scenes on this movie. So on this TV show, it feels like a movie because, I was so invested in the story from the very beginning. But also, working with Sam Miller as well, and being a part of, recruiting the directors, making those creative choices. So for me, it was a very stimulating experience and, learning about leadership, as well as, still playing the character and still doing all of the acting stuff as well. So yeah, it was an incredible experience.
I love it. Continue to blaze the frontier for women. Blaze the frontier. We love that. We love to see it. Oliver, I'm just convinced that you are just excellent at everything you do, from role selection to actually executing the role. What I've enjoyed about your portrayal in this series is you have the sweetest face, but behind that, there's a lot of menacing, and we don't know. We just don't know what's happening with these people, who we should trust, who we shouldn't trust. And in the shaping of making you the villain making you appear to be a villain from the onset is compelling and made me lean in more as the web starts to unravel. When you play a part like that, it's almost like acting within acting. So how do you navigate that sweetness, that menacing? Do we trust you? Do we not trust you? What's the fine line for you?
Well, do you know what? I actually think that so much of it was down to Veronica's scripts. I mean, it was pretty much all there. And so I think that for all of us, we had a discussion very early on about, do we lean in to this menacing side when it's supposed to be menacing, or do we lean into the heartfelt human side when it needs? And actually that all felt incredibly manipulative. And actually the best thing to do was to just play the honest truth. And it'd be one of those shows that, when it's hard to talk about without giving spoilers, but they're one of those shows that upon a rewatch, everything will be clear and it will all be there, sort of plain as day, right from the beginning. And so I think that the way I approached James was just to kind of go in with all of this sort of library of secrets that he's holding on to. And that can be interpreted in so many different ways. That can be interpreted as menacing, or interpreted as mysterious, or interpreted in so many different ways. So it's up to an audience. They put what they want onto it. And with all the characters in this, our perception of them keeps on shifting. And as new information arises, we are constantly having to rethink how we feel about every character, what we think's going to happen, because it's a roller coaster of a show.
It's awesome. Even some nobility to it. Well, they are wrapping me up. Thank you, guys. Great series. I love the thrill of it, and I appreciate you taking some time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Stephan. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
I love characters where I'm not exactly sure who I should trust. Should I trust any of them? Just anything with a lot of layers and mystique to them. And Baden is no exception. When we are introduced, we're not sure who
Yeah.
he is, what he means to all of these things that are going on. What was the hook for you when the opportunity was presented to you?
Yeah, I think it was that exact feeling, honestly, Giandra. It was like just having to play a guy that you can't quite put your finger on. He had this element of just mystery, of aloofness, um, and an air of just, confidence and swagger in the way he carried himself as this undercover cop. And I just thought to myself, how cool would this be, to flip it on its head, to do a character that's not predictable, to be a part of a show where you never know what's going to happen next. And I think that Veronica certainly followed through on her promise to me in that way.
Mhm. What's interesting to me about characters, or when they have sort of a menacing quality, or what menacing means is different to everybody, and there's a really fine line between being cool and being scared. What's that fine line look like for you to exuding that trait in such a subtle way? Because that's what really got me to lean in and think, I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I'm just not sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think you gotta be convincing either way, right? It's like acting within acting. I was acting a role where a guy was acting, and so it's one of those things where if you give the audience just little pieces at a time, they're forced to sort of, want to lean in more and see what else you're going to give episode by episode. And so I think the challenge for me was just measuring my performance, understanding what I was given at a particular time, to make sure that the audience, constantly wanted more.
Mhm. Throughout this tale, we have Gugu's character, Sophie, and Oliver plays her husband. And we learn in episode 1 that you are in the mix of this family. When the three of you have had to do scenes together, is it like a menacing off? Because all three of you together, it's like a standoff between the three of
Yeah.
you on those
Yeah.
what are those shoot days like for you?
I mean, it's fun. They're brilliant, artists. So, I always enjoyed sharing scenes with the both of them. But they're also just incredible people. We've had a lot of fun, just making this show together. I think it was kind of weird though for Gugu, looking at us both in the scene at the same time. Like she was like, oh, I don't know, this is kind of trippy, but we had fun with it. We definitely made the most of every moment.
Mhm. And lastly, there's a lots of twists and turns as the audience get deeper and deeper into this trio of personalities. Is there something you could tell us about the series without context, that after people watch it, they can refer back to this and go, oh, I see what he meant now?
I would say, just that this series is a lot to do with, what would you do if you had a second chance, right? Like if you could do it over again. And I think that each one of those characters realized that in a different way. And it doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow burn. But I promise you, if you stick with it, then you'll see it, and hopefully you'll be as fulfilled and as satisfied as we were in portraying these characters.
It is indeed. It is indeed. It's worth the journey. Well, I thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Great series. And thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Veronica, for your time. There are many things to enjoy about this series, but before the storyline, for those who will be watching our interview, we have a married couple. We have Gugu's character, who's lost her memory in the course of an accident. The series will explore what happened to exactly cause that memory loss, but it's in the shooting of it that was very beautiful to me, like the the fuzziness and the haziness that really put us into Gugu's her character Sophie's shoes. Was that an initial decision, creative decision to shoot it that way? Or was it something that came about over the course? Like, I thought this would be a nice artistic touch to add to this.
Well, that device is actually something that our director, Sam Miller, and our cinematographer, Tammy Riker, brought to the table as we were preparing to start shooting the show. And I was really drawn to it because I felt like it represented kind of Sophie's point of view and allowed us to experience that point of view with her. She's really grasping at the edges of her memory to try to understand who she was and who she needs to be. And this visual style really helped us showcase that.
I love that. I love that. That was the first thing that jumped out to me as I was getting invested in all the characters. So now we have these characters, and they're very layered and very interesting in that we don't know who's good, who's bad, where they're lying within that spectrum. When you craft and shape a character like this, is it a matter of showing the good and going to the bad, or showing the bad and going into the good? And there it lies in these people we become invested in.
Well, I think when you first watch Surface and the first episode, you start to think you understand the dynamic between these people. You know, you have the loving husband, you have her best friend, this mysterious man from her past. And as the series progresses, all of those expectations are really turned on their head. You know, everybody's motivations are not what they seem. So it was really exciting for us as storytellers to kind of start at the end, know what the truth was behind these people's relationships, and then go back to the beginning and say, you know, what would their motivations be? What would the things they would try to be fixing in their relationship with this woman? Should they be given this second chance of a blank slate? You know, they have this chance to rewrite history. What are they going to do with it?
Mm-hmm. Is rewriting it? I think of all the funny times when in marriage and relationships when you say, I wish I could just forget that never happened. I wish I could forget that happened. But in this case, is it a pro or a con that some of these things are, it's good that they've been forgotten?
I mean, I think that's the question the characters are struggling with, you know, like they have this chance, if something very traumatic happened to your wife and she forgot it, like, why make her relive it? You know, why tell her that when she wakes up? But as Sophie starts to discover throughout the course of the series, you can tell when people aren't being honest with you. You can tell when there's missing pieces. She looks around at her life, this fancy house, you know, being kind of the lady who lunches, and she says, that's not fulfilling to me. That wouldn't make me happy. So what am I not being told? What are the missing pieces? And that's what she has to set out to figure out.
I loved it. Well, I leaned all the way in. It is very, very compelling. And I appreciate you spending some time with me. Thank you so much. And I'm excited for people to start dissecting Surface and see if they can figure it out.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.